It was one of those late autumn nights where the air was thick with fog, and the streets were slick with a recent drizzle. I had no intention of causing trouble. I was just looking for a way to unwind after a long work week. But trouble has a way of finding you when you least expect it. I was walking home from a friend's place, taking a shortcut through an old, abandoned part of town. The buildings here were crumbling, their windows broken and boarded up, and the streetlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the cracked pavement. I knew I shouldn't have been there, but I wanted to avoid the main roads. That's when I saw it. A flash of red and blue lights in the distance. My heart skipped a beat. I knew there was a curfew in place, a strict one, enforced by the police. Anyone caught out after midnight without a valid reason would be arrested. No questions asked. I glanced at my phone. 12:05 a.m. I cursed under my breath. I quickly ducked into a nearby alleyway, hoping to avoid being seen. The sound of sirens grew louder, echoing off the walls of the narrow passage. My pulse quickened as I realized the police car was coming down the very street I had just been on. I pressed myself against the cold, damp wall, trying to make myself as small as possible. The car slowed to a crawl, its headlights cutting through the fog like knives. I held my breath, willing myself to be invisible. The car passed by the alley, and for a moment, I thought I was in the clear. But then, the light stopped, and the car reversed. I bolted. I didn't think. I just ran, sprinting down the alleyway as fast as my legs would carry me. I could hear the car's engine roar to life, the tires screeching as they gave chase. My lungs burned, and my legs felt like they were filled with lead, but I couldn't stop, not now. I burst out of the alley onto another street, this one even more decrepit than the last. The buildings here were closer together, looming over me like silent sentinels. I darted into another alley, hoping to lose them in the maze of the city's forgotten underbelly. But the police were relentless. I could hear the pounding of boots behind me now, the shouts of officers echoing in the night. "Stop! Police!" they yelled, but I didn't dare look back. I knew if I did, it would be the end of me. My mind raced, trying to figure out a way out of this nightmare. I knew these streets well enough, having grown up around here, but they had changed over the years. The old factories and warehouses had been abandoned, left to rot, and the alleys had become a labyrinth of dead ends and dangerous pitfalls. I took a sharp turn, hoping to lose them, but I found myself in a dead-end alley. My heart sank as I realized I had nowhere left to run. The walls around me were too high to climb, and the only way out was the way I'd come in. I was trapped. The footsteps grew louder, closer. I could hear them talking, their voices low and menacing. I was desperate, panicked. My eyes darted around the alley, searching for anything that could help me. That's when I saw it. A rusted, metal door, slightly ajar, leading into one of the abandoned buildings. Without thinking, I slipped through the door, closing it quietly behind me. The building was pitch black, the air thick with dust and the smell of decay. I fumbled for my phone, using its light to guide me as I moved deeper into the building, away from the door. I could still hear the police outside, but their voices were muffled now, distant. I found myself in a long, narrow hallway lined with old, rusted machinery. The floor creaked under my weight, and I had to be careful not to trip over the debris around me. I needed to find a place to hide, somewhere they wouldn't think to look. At the end of the hallway, I found a small room, its door hanging off its hinges. I slipped inside, my breath ragged and my heart pounding in my chest. The room was empty, save for a few broken chairs and a thick layer of dust that coated everything. I crouched down behind one of the chairs, hoping it would be enough to conceal me. I sat there, in the dark, listening to the sound of my own breathing. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. I could hear the police outside, their voices growing louder as they got closer to the building. They were searching for me, and I knew it was only a matter of time before they found me. I closed my eyes, trying to calm my racing heart. That's when I heard it. A soft, barely audible whisper. It was coming from behind me, from the darkness of the room. My blood ran cold as I slowly turned to look. There, in the shadows, I saw them. 2 glowing eyes, staring right at me. My heart stopped. The whispering grew louder, filling the room, echoing off the walls. It was a voice, ancient and malevolent, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. I wanted to scream and run, but I was frozen in place, paralyzed with fear. The eyes moved closer, and I could see a figure emerging from the darkness, its form twisted and unnatural. It reached out toward me, its hands skeletal and clawed. I felt a cold, icy grip on my arm, and suddenly, I was pulled into the darkness. The world around me spun, and I was engulfed in an overwhelming sense of dread. The last thing I heard before everything went black was the sound of the police officers bursting into the building, their shouts mixing with the whispers of the thing that had just taken me. When I came to, I was lying on the cold, damp floor of the room. The police were gone, and so was the thing that had pulled me into the darkness. But the fear remained, lodged deep in my chest like a splinter. I staggered to my feet, my body trembling. I had to get out of here, had to get away from whatever it was that had just found me in the dark. I stumbled out of the building, the night air hitting me like a shock of ice. The streets were empty, the fog thicker than before. The police were nowhere to be seen. I ran, not caring where I was going, just needed to get as far away as possible from that place where I was. But as I ran, I could still hear it, the whispering, faint and distant, but always there, just at the edge of my hearing. And I knew, deep down, that it would never stop. That no matter where I went or how far I ran, it would always be with me, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Because some things, once they find you, never let you go.